Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Mekakodash. And I'd like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to those who elect you in this word in truth and in sincerity. Okay, I'm the brother Awalam from the GMS West Palm Beach Camp, back with another lesson. To the spirit want to go through, just pretty much how, we at the end, man, and pretty much, all this war going on, the coming collapse of this economy, it's big signs and indicators that we're at the end, and as Paul says in Romans 13 and verse 11, it says, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep, for now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. It's time to wake out of sleep, man. Why? Because Yahushua is coming back, and World War III happening, because as you can see right now, this whole conflict with Iran, U.S., and Israel, that's pretty much World War III has started, that's just a starting point, and eventually it's going to escalate to something bigger, the mark of the beast is getting ready to be implemented, the collapse of this society is getting ready to happen, so these are all things leading to the return of who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ. Yahushua Mashiach. It says, verse 12, the night is far spent, the day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. And the works of darkness is pretty much talking about the works of this world, man. The wickedness of this world, because we were once part of this world. When I say we were once part of this world, like, we were doing the things that these people are doing. All right, celebrating birthdays, celebrating wicked holidays. Eating unclean things. These are the works of darkness. Because the works of light, is through the law and statutes and commandments of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And of course, I gotta input that the law, statutes, and commandments is not what's gonna save us. All right, but we still keep the laws, to hold a standard. And especially in a wicked world like this, where there's no order. Keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, is the best move you can make. Actually, right? It's the best move you can make because, as this world become more ungodly and ungodly, it's like righteousness, and we know that righteousness is still here, but it's like righteousness is non-existent no more. All right, in Esau's kingdom, but once again, it's still here, because the Lord has a remnant, in every kingdom, or in every time period within the scriptures, the Lord's people always went left, but within that, there was always a remnant, that upheld the righteous way. Noah, you had Enoch, Noah, you had Abraham, so on and so forth. You always had a remnant among them that pretty much upheld the ways of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So we're living in a time to where the world is more wicked, more evil than ever, and there's an elect, there's a remnant, that is upholding the ways of the Lord. Okay? Let's go to Malachi chapter 3 verse 16, and it says, Then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him, for them that feared the Lord, and they that thought upon his name. Okay? And it's talking about the elect, those that thought upon the name of the Lord, because when you look at this kingdom, right? When you look at here in America, most of our people, they're not checking for the Lord. You know, they're not, because we see it every week, and it's lucky, man. My nose is every morning, man. Same shit. Okay, but when you look at our people here in America, Jake is living it up. Nobody's checking for the Lord. Nobody's asking what the name of the Lord is. Nobody asking him, how do you please the Lord? Jake is just all about what I'm going to do, what I'm doing. You see? So that shows you that, our people are wicked out here. They're gonna inquire of the Lord when they shut this bitch down again. Alright, verse 17 says, and they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them, as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. See, so the Lord's gonna spare his elect from the coming wrath that he's gonna pour upon the earth. The Lord's gonna spare his elect. The Lord's gonna spare his elect from, the destruction coming. It is high time to awake out of sleep, right? For our salvation is nearer than when we believe. And for the most part, a lot of people, they can see that we're at the end. They can see that things is changing for the worst, concerning the Edomite kingdom. But for the elect, it's changing for the best, because we understand that, where this world is headed, it's leading to something, greater for us, if you know what I mean. It's leading to something greater for us, because, to be quite frank, we need these things to happen, right? We need these things to happen in order to, receive the kingdom. All right? World War III, famines, plagues, and as much as bad as it's gonna be, we need it to happen because we have to receive the kingdom. All right? Just like the scriptures give the analogy of a pregnant woman who's ready to give birth. The birth pains. The birth pains, like she got to go through the birth pains and deliver that baby. So likewise, the world is going to go through the hell. They're going to go through the birth pains. All right? When the birth pains is over, what happens? The baby is delivered. The joy after the baby being delivered is there. So for the elect, after the elect goes through, the hell coming on this earth, the Lord deliver, there's going to be joy after that, man. Okay? Let's go to 2nd Esdras. 2nd Esdras chapter 9. And verse 1, he says, he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before. Alright, now we measure the times through prophecy. Right, we measure the times through the current events, things happening around the world. Because there's no physical, clock or measuring stick that you can use to measure, what times y'all in, or, what they call them things. Like something that you use to read the time. You look up the sky and then you see, all right, this was going to happen. No, that's not how it works with the Lord. The Lord speaks through prophecy. All right, he works through prophecy. You see? So, we measure the time through prophecy. It says, verse 2, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. You see? So the highest, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, is getting ready to visit the world. He's getting ready to pour upon these people his wrath, his indignation. See, and that's why we go so hard, against our apostles and elders, on our people to repent. But we understand that it's only for the elect anyway. But the job still got to be done, to go out there on the highways and hedges and pretty much let Jake know, what the deal is. Because at the end of the day, what did the Lord say in Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter? at the end of the day, the Lord said, you know, Ezekiel 3:17, it says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. You know, it's just like this, right? Like I read in Romans, the 13th chapter, you know, in the 11th verse, where it says, it is high time to wake out of sleep. You know, it's just like, you know, you got a village, right? And in the village, you got people sleeping. And you have the watchmen, which are the prophets, right? The watchmen see the enemy coming. What they do? They blow the horn, you know, sounding the alarm, letting you know that, look, the enemy's coming, you know? But the people are like, you know what? So like, our people are like, you know, just sleeping, slumbering, whatever, you know? They're not gonna, you know, they're not that close. But that's how Jake is here in America. You know, the prophets are blowing the horn, you know, letting them know, hey, then the enemy's coming. Esau's getting ready to do this. Esau's getting ready to do that. What Jake do? They playing. They procrastinating. You know? But when this thing go down, you know, that's it. But Ezekiel 3:17, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me. When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speak to warn the wicked of his wicked way. Salakia. To save his life, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand. You see, so the Lord told us, all right, to warn the wicked of our people. See? So even though we understand that this truth is for the elect, you know, we still got to preach to, you know, the nation of Israel. And of course, the heathen nations, they got to hear their judgment, right? But the nation of Israel, to whom salvation pertaineth, right? They got to hear it. That way, you know, those that's going to repent, they're going to repent, all right? And those that are going to be wicked, they're going to still be wicked. But at the end of the day, they heard the word. They know what's good and what's not. After that, you know, the judgment is there. You know, but yeah, man, it is high time to wake out of sleep. Okay, because our salvation is close. It's almost that time, you know, and hey, who knows? Something can happen soon to where Babylon gets locked up again. You know, for sure. We know that it's going to be much, much bigger, way bigger than, you know, what happened back in 2001. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But this is going to lead to a global shift, a global change. Okay? So, you know, it's high time to wake out of sleep. Our salvation is near. You know, and no more time to waste, man. So with that, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakat Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And peace and salutations to the full elect, hearing this word in truth and in sincerity. Until next time, I say Shalom and Baba Ball.